Hello Internet, this is 4x1 here with my first Java video. Today I'm just going to be covering how to download the Eclipse IDE and a little bit about Java and programming in general. So for my videos I'm going to be using Eclipse. I highly recommend it. There's a whole bunch of IDEs out there, different programs that you can use to write in Java, but Eclipse is my favorite, so that's what you're going to have to download first. I mean, you could write it on Notepad or any text editor, really, and then send that to a compiler, but I think it's much easier to download to write on IDE. Most people who write code or programmers use IDEs, and they're very helpful. So what you're going to do is you're going to open a browser, just going to look up Eclipse download, and it should come right up, the first result. It's Eclipse IDE for EE developers is the one you are probably going to want. It's basically just the basic kit. It comes with everything you're going to need. There's a whole bunch of different versions depending on what you're working on. They have different packages, different tools, I believe slightly different GUIs. I've never actually worked with any of them, but the Java EE. But Java EE is the one you're looking for. You'll pick either 32 or 64-bit based on your computer. Mine is 64. And you'll eventually click download. The download will ask you to donate, and it'll give you a place where you want to download it. And then once you download, the bar will come up on the bottom, and you just open the installer, and it'll walk you through the installation process. Just hit next, next, agree, and install. It should come up with a desktop icon, and then once you click on that desktop icon, Eclipse should open up. So now that I've talked about how to get Eclipse, let's talk about why Java. Why Java is a good language to start with, and what you can do with it. So first I'm going to ask, what are we going to learn? What is a programming language? How do they work? What is the JDK? What is an IDE? And why is Java such a good programming language to learn first? So what is a programming language? Well, a programming language is kind of like French or German or English. It's a series of different words that have different meanings. When you're programming, what you're really doing is you're talking to the computer and you're saying, hey computer, I'd like you to do this, this, and this. You're sending the computer a list of instructions. That's all a program is. And so when you write a program, you can use different syntax, just as I could write a set of instructions in German or English. Now, certain languages work better for certain things, and so that's why they're different. They also, what sets them apart, some of them have different things that you can do, or different ideas. For example, pointers is something that exists in C, but does not exist in Java. Pointers are all done for you in Java. One of the reasons why it's really a good language to learn first. But what's really different is the syntax. Syntax is different. Now, syntax just like is what conventions are used. So, in most programming language, for C or Java, you need to have a semicolon after every line. That's just something that is a syntax part of it. And it's how you format the way you write your commands, which will eventually go to a compiler. So we've got our list of instructions, and we've got in Java. Now, how does that actually turn into a program? Well, what happens is the list of instructions that you're given is given to a compiler. And a compiler is basically a translator. You see, the computer works off of binary. Now, you can't write in binary because you'd be pushing 1 and 0 so many times that it would take forever. It would be impossible. If you think about a program, a really, really small program might be a kilobyte. Now, a kilobyte means that there's 1,000 bytes in it, each byte being 64 bits, each bit being a 1 or a 0. That means that there's 64 times 1,000, or 64,000 ones and zeros in a very, very small program. Now, when you think about larger programs that are in gigabytes, you can imagine how that would be a lot of things. Lots and lots of ones and zeros. So what we have to do, we write something in Java or C or a different programming language, and then we get a different program that takes all the words, and when it sees certain words, it turns it into the right set of ones and zeros. Or in other words, it translates from Java to machine language. And the Java compiler is actually a little bit more complicated than that. I'm not going to get into it too much. But one of the fancy things about Java is, or in many languages, it goes from what your programming language into assembly into your machine language. And Java works a little bit differently. I'm not going to really get into that, but it's pretty neat. So if you want to look it up, you can. So now we got a machine language, but how does that work, right? So you've got in a computer a whole bunch of different parts. You've got your hard drive, you've got your RAM or random access memory, and you've got your I/O devices like a mouse, a keyboard, right? And your output devices like a monitor or speakers. So what happens is you've got your program and it's saved on the hard drive or the memory is what you call a deep memory. Now, the memory that is stored in when you have an operating system that turns on every time the computer turns on, and that is a program that sits in your RAM that tells the processor to grab certain things from certain locations. So when I open my computer, Windows shows up. And when I open a program, Windows says, okay, let me go off and grab it from wherever it's sitting in memory. So it grabs the program from memory, takes it out, and puts it in a place called RAM. Now, RAM is called random access memory because it's the memory that at any random point the processor can get a hold of. Now, it takes turns going into a processor based off of something called a clock, and it eventually is all the actions in the program are carried out by the processor, and when it's done, it's sent back to memory. And that's really how a program works. So what is the JDK? What is that thing that we just downloaded? Well, it's called the Java Development Kit, and it includes all the Java packages, which are whenever you have something like import java.swing.star or Java, well, whatever you are importing, that is all included in the JDK. Now, JDK is included in Eclipse. You download it together. So when we said download the IDE of Eclipse, you're also downloading the JDK. I believe it might have to be a separate download. But so basically, it's the whole shebang, all the stuff that you need of the Java language. Anything you're going to import, and I might have I don't remember if the compiler is in the JDK or the JRE, but it's in one of the two. Which begs the question, what is a JRE? Well, it stands for Java Runtime Environment, and basically, it's something that allows the computer to not freak out when the program crashes. Essentially, what it says is when you take the program from RAM, it comes with a little bit of code that tells the processor, hey processor, so if the program breaks, don't worry about it. And that's the general idea. So that way when you're writing something and you missed a semicolon and you compile, well, Java won't let you compile it, but let's say you're writing in C and you miss the C and you try and compile it and it compiles somehow magically. Basically, if you get a segment fault, it won't break your computer. It runs itself all in its own place, and that way, when you output to the when you do something like system.out.println and it prints not to the like a GUI, but you print it to your command line, it's not printing to the command line; it's printing to the output within the Java runtime environment. Basically, it protects you from writing a program that says, delete my computer. So what is the IDE? Well, the IDE is the rest of it. It's the spell check, it's the GUI, it's the different ways. When you open up Eclipse, it's everything you see in Eclipse. Eclipse is the IDE. And it is the program that allows you to write all this stuff. Now, they said you could write it in Notepad, and you could have a separate compiler, and you could write it from Notepad and put it in the compiler, and then run it on your main system without an IDE, or without a Java runtime environment. But it's much better to have, especially when you're just learning, to have a IDE to help you out there with some things. For example, that way you don't send things. It won't let you compile unless it's going to work. You won't be able to seg fault with the IDE. It'll tell you if it's going to seg fault once you run it. And it's got spell check, autocomplete, a whole bunch of very nice tools, as well as debugger, which is incredibly important. So why Java? Why would we learn Java as opposed to C or JavaScript or Python? Well, Java has a couple things that I think makes it a really good language to start with. First, it's easier to pick up than a lot of other languages. For example, as I said earlier with pointers in C, pointers are very complicated and easy to mess up and screw up and have your program crash. Now, it's harder to do that in Java because of the IDEs that are provided for you and because Java also does pointers for you automatically. It's not as powerful as C for that reason. It has more, the programs are longer, and because it's not optimized by the writer or the programmer, Java programs tend to be a lot larger for the same thing that C is, and thus less efficient. The other reason I really like it for new programmers is it's got GUIs built into the packages. I can say java.frame or I can make a new JFrame object, and there's a window. I made a window pop up. Now, this isn't like necessary, or it's not a huge part of the learning process, but it is really nice to have a program that you can compile and export and then run, and you can watch it happen outside of the command line, outside of the Java runtime environment. It's really cool to have a program that you just wrote. Now, I personally like to have the little reward of, oh wow, I made that pop up on the screen. I think it's very neat. May not be for everyone, but I think it's lovely. Eclipse is fantastic. IDEs are something you definitely want when you're just learning to program, in my personal opinion. They're very helpful, and we're using Eclipse, which is why I say Eclipse rather than just an IDE. A lot of people don't like Eclipse. It's not super efficient. There's a whole bunch of things that are missing from it, but for the most part, it works for everything you'll need. One nice thing about Java is Java works on any system, whether you're running Linux, Windows, or Apple, and it doesn't matter which version of those you are running, because Java works based off of Java compiles every time you run it or you download it onto a new system. So when you have to do Java updates on your computer, what's really going on is the Java compiler is being updated. Now, that's one reason that it's very cool, because you can use it everywhere. One other nice thing is that you got a whole bunch of add-ons with it. There's a whole bunch of packages. Processing is one of the things I'm going to be going over in this series of videos, hopefully, which is just an add-on that allows you to do a lot of things very easily. Wonderful add-on. And lastly, you can put it on your phone. Now, so Android is all written in Java. The operating system might be a different language, but there is Android Development Kit, which allows you to take your Java programs and put them on your phone, which is really neat. So that's why I think Java is a good programming language to start out with. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for more.